Hey guys, welcome back. It's been a little while. We got a new lesson for you today. So we're going to be working on variables, and we're going to be learning something called sequences and sequence length. And you're going to have a bit of a problem solving and a logic challenge. So I'm going to do this tutorial like I have in the past, except I'm purposely going to do something that I don't need to do in this lesson. I'm going to put in an extra code block that is not necessary, and your challenge is to follow along, do this like normal. But in your submission, when you submit this to Google Classroom, I want you to tell me what was the extra piece of code or the extra code block and why it's not needed. Okay? Because I feel like some of you guys are just following along with lessons and doing it, which is great, but you need to be thinking as well because we're going to get to the point where we're doing like lessons that require a bit of problem solving on your part. And so we need to get thinking in that sort of manner. Okay? So here's what we're doing. We're going to have a couple of variables, okay, current and previous, and that's going to remember what our choice is and what our previous choice is. So when we start this, it's going to set our variables to 0, whatever they were. And then when I click on 1, right, it's going to say you chose 1. There's my variable, which replaces what it was, which was 0, okay, which is the previous. If I click 2, it's going to say, okay, your current choice is 2. You chose 2, which replaces your last choice, which is 1. Okay, so now my last choice was 2. So when I click this, it says you chose 3, and your last choice was 2. So I'm just going through 1, 2, 3, 4. It changes my current to my most recent, and it says your last choice was 3. Okay? Every time I do it, it updates my current, it updates my previous. And at the same time, at the end of this, once we've done that, we've also got, if I click on my pterodactyl here, it's going to tell me you have made 4 choices, and your choices were 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, if I continue, if I go 4, which replaces the last one, which was 4, 3, which will replace 4, 2, which will replace 3, and 1, which replaces 2, and then I click on this, again, it's going to say now you've made 8 choices, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1, okay, and that's what you're seeing here, okay, and then this resets everything, okay, so let's take a look at how to do that. Create a new file here. Now, I have a feeling this is going to take more than 15 minutes, so this might be 2 videos. We'll see how it goes. All right, so the first thing, we don't need the cat. We're going to go add in our sprites. First one we need is a pterodactyl. Grab him. And the second one we need is egg, which is here. Okay. You probably don't need to do this, but I'm going to dump the extra underneath that. I might keep this guy, and I'm going to delete those, just leaving these 2 egg costumes because I might reuse that later. All right, so we've got dinosaur, which I'm going to call Ptera. Oops. One too many R's there. Ptera, and this will be egg 1, and I'm going to duplicate it. So I've got egg 2, duplicate, oops, duplicate egg 3, and duplicate egg 4. 4, this is 1, 2, 3. Okay, so there are my eggs in order. 1, 2, 3, 4. Great. Move my pterodactyl over here because I need room for when he says something to be able to see it. Okay. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my variables. So I'm going to go down to variables here, and I'm going to create a new variable. So by default, I have my variable, but I'm going to be using 2, so I'm going to name them. So I'm going to click here and say make a variable. I'm going to give the name variable. The first one's going to be called current for all sprites. It's going to be used all over the place. Current. I'm going to add another variable, which is going to be called previous. And those are just the 2 choices. Okay, your current choice and your previous choice. Those can be here, or you can turn them off if you don't want them. But for our purposes, we're going to leave them there. Okay. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to let's work through the egg code that we need to do for each of the eggs. So the first thing we need to do is when I click on this egg, it needs to sort of select or tell the program that it's been selected. Okay, so usually we do this using an event. So I'm going to go up to my events, and I'm going to say when this sprite, okay, egg, is clicked, we're going to broadcast. We have to tell it, tell the program something. So I'm going to go broadcast. Now, like we've done in the past, you can use message, but because there are 4 of these, and we're going to be doing a message each time we do one of these broadcasts, I'm going to change this from message 1. I'm going to say new message. And my message is going to simply be the number 1. Okay? I'm going to set a value for current. So now I've broadcast that this number, that this has been selected. I'm also going to go to my variables and I'm going to update these variables here. So I'm going to say set my current selection to 1. Okay, so that says make my current selection 1. I also need to set my previous selection to what current was. So I'm going to say set current to previous. Now, I need to do this in the right order. If I set current, remember that these things happen in the sequence that they are ordered. So when this spread is clicked, it's going to broadcast this 1. Then it's going to set current to 1. And I'm going to, if I change this to set previous to what I was going to put here is current, the problem with this is I just set current to 1, which means it's going to make previous the same thing. So I've got to do them in the right order. Okay, does that make sense? You have to have, if I'm making my previous equal to what current used to be, that has to happen before I make this change. Okay, because otherwise, think about this. Right now my current is 0. If I set current to 1 and then I say, okay, now set previous to current, I just set it to 1, which means now this is going to be looking here and it's going to use this information to make my update to previous. So make sure that that happens in the correct order, and the correct order is like this. Okay? Okay, so when this spread is clicked, broadcast 1, set my previous to whatever current was, and then update current to number 1. Now I want this same code on each egg, so I'm actually just going to, there's a way to do this. If you move it and while you've got it selected here, and let go and then copy, I can actually just go over to egg 2 and paste, and it puts the same code in there. And I can just update this. So I'm going to say make this a 2, and I'm going to change this to 2. Okay, same thing, I'm going to go to egg 3, I'm going to paste, this is going to become a new message, which is going to be 3, and I'm going to change my current to 3. Finally, egg 4, paste, I'm going to make this a new message, which is going to be 4, and I'm going to change my current to 4. Okay, so let's just check that these things are working. If we look up here, when I click on this sprite, it updates my current to 4, okay, and it changes previous to what it was. That was just 0, it's now changed it to what it was. Okay, let's go to this guy here. I click on this sprite, it updates it to 3, which is what I told it to do. Okay, and right before that it changes previous to what it was. Okay, so these are now working. These are updating. Every time I do this, it's updating my previous and then it's updating my current. Okay, great. So that seems to be working well. Now what we're going to do is we're going to put in a little reset here, because when I start this, if I run this a couple times, these values are going to be changed. So we're going to go over to our pterodactyl, and we are going to add in a, let's see here, pterodactyl. I'm going to add in a kind of a reset. So we'll do this when we start this code. We're going to put in a when clicked, and we're just going to set both of these variables. Okay, the two we just talked to. Current can be 0. And previous will be 0, and that'll just reset these. Okay, so I click this resets those to 0. Okay, all right. Now, all this seems to be working so far. We can make these selections and they get recorded in our variables. We also need to now have our pterodactyl say what our choices were. Okay, so we're going to have to now receive some new information. So let's go back over to our egg, because I want this to happen every time we broadcast a new choice. Every time we make a choice, we need to say, hey, I've made a new choice. So let's do this for all 4 of our eggs. I'm going to go to my events, and I'm going to say broadcast, and I'm going to make a new message that says new selection. Okay, and that's just going to say you've made a new selection. I'm going to put this in right in here. Okay, so when the spread is clicked, it broadcasts 1, that 1 was the choice. Then it broadcasts, hey, a new selection was made, and I'm going to put that, copy it. I'm going to put in each of these. I'm going to put it here, paste. I'm going to put it here, paste. I'm going to put it here. I'm going to go back to my first one and just reset this where I want it. Okay, so now egg 1, egg 2, egg 3, egg 4 are all the same code, except that they are broadcasting a different number. They're setting current to a different number and resetting previous to their opposite. And each of them always broadcast the same thing, saying, hey, there's a new selection. Okay? All right, let's go back over to our pterodactyl and see what our pterodactyl is saying. So here, the pterodactyl is what we are going to click on to update or to sort of do that little word bubble that says, hey, you've made these choices. Okay, so that's going to happen when the pterodactyl hears a broadcast. The broadcast, as you saw over here, was new selections been made. Okay, so I'm going to go to the pterodactyl and I'm going to say, when I receive the message, a new selection has been made. Okay, so when this is clicked, it says, hey, new selection. When this hears that, it's going to do something. And those things are going to be a couple of these guys here. Say something. Okay, so right now it'll say hello for 2 seconds. So if I click on this guy here, it broadcasts. I gotta click here. It broadcasts that message, broadcast new selection. Okay, and it says hello because we've only put in so far say hello for 2 seconds. We need to update that with a little bit more of a complex message. Now, here's where we're going to get into using operators within this. Now, I think I may have done something similar to this already, but let's take a look at how this is going to work. I wanted to say you chose whatever your current value is for the 2 seconds, but there's only room in here to say you chose. I need to put in something else. So here's where we're going to put a space there. I'm going to go over to operators and I'm going to drag this operator out here. Okay, so this is going to join two things. So I'm going to say you chose space, and then in here I'm going to put the value of my variable current. You chose current, and because this oval shape is the same as that, I can put this in here. Okay, so say you chose current value for 2 seconds. So when I click on this, you chose 1. Okay, great. Let's keep going. I also wanted to say, because we've made our selection here, I also wanted to say your last choice was something different. Let's reset these. Right now, my choices are 0. So this is back to 0. Okay, I chose 1. I also wanted to say you didn't have a choice before, so your previous choice was something else. So let's make another one of these. Okay, another say. We're going to use another operator, a join operator, which is here. Okay, and we're going to say which replaces, okay, space, okay, which replaces the previous variable. So let's go to previous. I'm going to put that in here. Okay, and I'm going to put this up in here. So now it's going to say, just to make some space. When I receive, hey, a new selection has been made, when this is broadcast, okay, it's going to say you chose whatever the current value is for 2 seconds, which replaces your old choice for 2 seconds. Well, let's see. Click here. You chose 1, which replaces, oh, that's a mistake. That should be, let's reset these. You chose 1, which replaces 0. Good. When I click this, you chose 2, which replaces 1. I chose this, 3, which replaces 2. So what it's doing is looking to these variables and plugging them into this place. Okay? All right, so that's the first part of this tutorial. Okay, right now we're just remembering what's been selected, putting it in a variable, and then spitting that variable out when I click on this, or when I each time I click, it tells me what was chosen. Okay, I chose 2, it replaces my last value. I chose 3, it replaces my previous value. I chose 4, it replaces my previous value. It's just looking to these things to get that information. Okay, I'm going to pause it there because I'm going to add in the second part of this, which is that this pterodactyl, when I click on it, is going to spit out what my past choices were. Okay, I'm going to pause that right there.